Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey everybody, it's Jessa. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. I am here again, and so are you, and I am so glad. I want to make sure you know that you can reach out. You can get in touch with me. You can ask questions. On the bettersexpodcast.com website, there's a little thing, it's called a widget, where you can record a question to me. Don't use your name, do it anonymously, or a first name or something. But anyway, you can ask a question, and I can answer it as part of the podcast. I've done it a few times. I would love to have more questions if you have them, so please feel free to join me there, and let me know what you want to know. Today's episode is a personal story, and I haven't actually recorded one of these in a while. I've been so focused on, climbing up on my own soapbox or, talking to the experts that get in touch with me. And today I've gone back to a personal story, and it just reminds me of what an honor it is to speak to people. I feel so blessed that people are willing to come on and share their own personal struggles. Their story with the trauma or the difficulties or the challenges, and then how they have moved through those things, how they've overcome them, where they've ended up. I think that these are more impactful for you as a listener than even hearing from these experts that have wonderful advice to share. I hope you find it the same way. So today I'm talking to somebody I'm calling Toni, who's going to share her story of sexual abuse, other abuse too, and how through numerous different processes of examination and self-work, she really has come to embody and to own her sense of beauty and of being a goddess and her own sexual power. It's really a compelling story, and I hope it makes a difference to you. So Toni, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So this is, we're going to dive a little bit into your personal story. So I thought maybe you could start, where do you want to start with that? What's the beginning of your journey in terms of sexuality, sexual expression, intimacy, that kind of thing?
Okay. It started when I was in the third grade, and I was molested by at the time, my mother's boyfriend. So that was my introduction to sex.
Wow. Third grade. So that is what, 8 years old?
I'm not sure how old you are in the third grade.
Not very old.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that continued till I was about 16.
With the same guy?
Yeah. So it was pretty messed up for me.
Yeah.
Concerning sex, concerning everything in life, but sex most definitely. I got married when I was 23, and I essentially went from the frying pan into the fire, I guess.
Really?
I went from one abuser to the other. My husband wasn't a sexual predator in that regard, but in the personality of the control and the manipulation and the anger and the violence, he was that,
Yeah.
So It was in my mid-20s, I suppose. I went to see a psychotherapist. So I went to see her weekly for 2 years.
Okay.
And in that process was when I realized that I wasn't complaining about or wasn't even really discussing my sexual abuse as a child very much. I was talking about my problems that I was having dealing with my husband.
Yeah.
So some awareness started to shift for me at that point.
So you had not tied those things together, that I've gone from one abusive situation to another.
I had not.
Wow.
I had not. And that, don't want to say that that was a sexless relationship, but it was fairly sexless.
Mm-hmm.
I could not relax. I could not stop. Flashback visions. I didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
There was I didn't even know intimacy, or it was a very unsafe feeling for me.
Right. Right.
So
at the time when you were in, third grade up till whatever you are at 16, I mean, when did it dawn on you that this is problematic, that this isn't, what should be happening in a home? Like, did you know that from the very beginning, or were you sort of almost groomed in such a way that it was hard to see it as a problem?
It was, oh my gosh. He was I'm assuming that most sexual predators are very manipulative and control, and he was a master at it.
Yeah.
My grandmother, she passed when I was 4 years old. But before that, one of my earliest memories is of her giving this guy heck. I was upset. We lived in a very, very small community, like the smallest of the small.
Okay.
And we ran a business in that small community. So we were very, if you want to say, I don't want to say high profile, but everybody knew us.
Yeah.
Everybody knew everybody, but everybody really knew us. And so supper was over and everybody was going back into the business, and my mom was leaving, and I was going to have to be left alone in the house with my great grandmother and him. And I was upset about it. Okay.
At 4 years old, or before 4. Yeah.
Before 4.
Yeah.
And he was an outsider. He came from a long, far away, big city.
Okay.
He was not accepted in the community, not liked, not trusted. And I could feel that as a child.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I was making this fuss, and he said to me, I'll take you to your mom. What he did instead was he took me out around the back of the house and started spanking me and saying things that you wouldn't say to a child.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't my grandmother, we all lived in the same house together, great grandma, great grandpa, grandma, grandpa, uncle, mom, me.
Wow.
And she caught him and said, you get your hands off of that child, you son of a bitch.
Wow.
And you get out of here. And that's my last memory of my grandmother, who was already my hero as it was.
Yeah.
And my next memory is of her dying in front of me.
Oh, gosh.
And I made it in my head that he created that.
Created her death?
Yeah, this man. Because he would tell me about how if I didn't behave and if I didn't do what I was told, people would get hurt.
Oh, gosh.
Right? So he would tell me he was from the mafia and, all of this stuff. And I would believe it.
Yeah.
So I switched everything that I had to do, everything that this man put upon me, because if I didn't, my mom could be injured, my grandfather.
Who's the next one, right? Who's going to be hurt by him? Yeah.
Anything could happen.
Wow.
So I was very disconnected from people.
Yeah. I mean, it raises in my mind a whole series of questions, not that we have to go this direction at all, but did your mom see this guy? It sounds like everybody else did. So, that's, obviously she was not there to protect you.
No.
Somehow this all happened right in front of her, basically.
Well, yeah. Then that was the thing is that everybody was working in the business, all the adults, except for my great grandmother, who was downstairs with a walker, so she couldn't get up to where my room was.
Yeah.
And that's where everything started, was there.
Yeah.
And then he got another place that they could have as their little getaway escape place. It was a trailer out away from there. my mom was very smitten with this man. Again, he's a master manipulator.
Right. He would know how to turn that on for her.
And he had money.
Yeah.
And he spoiled her, and he took her to places that people from where we were from wouldn't go. You wouldn't go to plays. You wouldn't go to musicals. You wouldn't go to fine dining. You wouldn't go on trips because you were a slave to whatever it was you did in your life, whether you were a farmer or whatever. Yeah. And that's how it was. So she was very romanticized by all of that. And the other adults in my family were very shut down because after my grandmother died, she was only 42 when she died.
Oh my gosh.
So everybody was just devastated because she was the glue in the family.
Yeah.
And they were just dealing in their own grief, and they weren't dealing with it well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that I was ignored, but I kind of was.
No, you kind of were, right? Like there's not space for you to be seen or prioritized. Yeah.
Right. And I could feel that as a little girl, that everybody was not doing very well with grandma dying. But
right.
I didn't see what the big deal was with grandma dying because she's, as far as I was concerned as a little girl, she's sitting right there. I could talk to her all the time. I'd sit and talk to her picture and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Did you have siblings that you were being raised with? No.
I'm
okay.
a child.
Okay.
So
yeah.
And it's funny that this whole past year of my life has been about, I think about closure, because I've reconnected, because of social media and different things. I've reconnected with a lot of people that I had relationships with, friendships with, and boyfriends even from when I was a teenager that have said to me, we suspected, but nobody knew what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's like one day this last summer, I sat with two of my childhood girlfriends, and we sat the whole day and just talked and talked and talked. And that was the theme, was about their experiences and the things that they saw and they had to get it out.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's traumatic to everybody in different ways.
And they've carried their own guilt.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these years,
And yet it's almost like the politics of the situation, the small town, his power, your mother's complicity, like all this stuff sort of sets it up so it's hard for anyone to intervene.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like sort of not an excuse. Well, it is for children, but and yet I can understand how that culture develops,
I grew up most of my life very angry and resentful towards my mother because I felt that she did know and she condoned it, and she saw it as an excuse for her to get out of this hick town and move on to bigger and better things. So I saw myself as a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And after he passed, I realized, it was a few years after he had passed, and it was this realization came to me. I protected her my entire childhood.
Oh.
I'm still protecting her in his death.
Hmm.
So I dialed in some of that and what that was about.
Yeah, you were carrying quite the load on your shoulders as a young girl.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yep.
Did you ever have that conversation with your mother about, letting you be under the bus, whether she threw you there or not?
Well, I've never had the conversation. Did you know that this is what, because she's still got him on such a pedestal.
Wow.
He was just the greatest man. And everybody thinks that was not from our small town.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Right. He was an executive. He was an important person.
Yeah.
So so he was very well loved in that regard. However, I did reconnect again with another person from school and told my mom about it, and how he basically wanted me to know that he kind of decided not to be boyfriend or girlfriend with me anymore, even though we're just kids, right?
Right.
Because the pressure of my stepfather was just too much for him, right? He was awful.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Yeah.
So my mom said, it's too bad that that boy didn't just say to us that he was wanting to get to know you, and he ran off like that, because you two might have made a nice connection. And I got angry with her. This was just last year.
Wow.
And I said, you know what, Mom? He did say that. And, you don't realize the impact that this man had on my life. He came into our community. He drank in the hotels. He had gambling debts. Everybody despised him. But because he was your boyfriend, everybody was doing their best to say, well, he makes her happy, so we guess we have to just smile and go with it, even though we can't stand him. And I said, but you didn't understand that I was being ridiculed at school, because everybody knew what a jackass he was.
So you still haven't confronted her or told her about the sexual abuse?
I have not.
Well, yeah. So that's what you mean by still protecting your mother.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I talked it over with my father several years before my father passed away. And he said to me, well, he agreed with me. He didn't say to me, he agreed with me. And then I said, I don't really see how it's going to be of any benefit to anything. Yeah. What's done is done. And she has this whole scenario and lifestyle in her head that really makes her heart feel good. So if I come in and squash that, what is that doing? That's not going to make me feel any better about anything. So she knows nothing.
So you had it sounds like you had some boyfriends between or during the abuse, but between then and when you got married at 23, right? Was there anything in your sexual history at that point that was positive? Were you having sex that you wanted? Were you in touch? Was there any part of you that was able to access your own sexuality as a positive force in your life at that, before you got married? Or
no.
Okay.
No. I had trust issues.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had boyfriends, but they had to be somebody really, really special. I mean, so I would have been going into high school in the 80s. So I had 3 boys that I had sex with in high school. So I don't know statistically if that's above or below or not.
I don't know either, but I'm mostly interested, were those chosen experiences? Were those positive for you? Do you feel like those were somehow acting out of the abuse?
I felt like that was something that I was supposed to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. This is how it's supposed to.
Yeah.
This is the next piece to it.
Right.
It, and I was certainly, I shouldn't say certainly, that's going to sound arrogant, but I think I was a lot more advanced than probably the other girls that were my age doing the same with them. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, not in a good way, right? Not for a good reason, but yes, that happens.
I had issues with it because, I mean, I developed boobs when I was in the 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
So I was pretty tough, and because boys wanted to grab you and grope you and carry on. And I had a boy that lived across the road and up a little bit, that he was just, us girls talked about him this summer too. He was just a psycho.
Wow.
And if he could get you alone in some basement or barn or shed, you were going to be in some trouble. So I learned really early how to fight and use my fists and use my mouth. I was a bit aggressive, and I think it was all that anger that I had.
Well, yeah, you can defend yourself against this boy on the street a little bit where you couldn't with your stepdad, right? Like that's,
Which is eventually what it came down to. It came down to a physical altercation between the 2 of us when I was 16, and he just about died that night.
Oh, wow. So that's why it stopped when you were 16?
That's why it stopped. Yep.
Wow. Was that the first time you had sort of fought back or taken him on?
No, it was not. We had been to a family wedding, and he was just plastered. And drove home drunk. My mom drove home in a separate car. I don't even know why we were not in the same vehicles. But anyway, they let me have one. I was 13 because they let me have my boyfriend at the time come to the wedding. So he was driving home and he was doing all this crazy stuff, driving in the dark with no headlights on and driving down the wrong side of the road. It was just awful.
And you're in the car with him?
Yeah, me and my little boyfriend and
oh my gosh,
my stepfather. When we drop him off, we get home and everybody goes to bed, and then he starts his routine. And I was so angry with him for embarrassing me in front of my little boyfriend that I somewhere got the gumption to stand up for myself. And I told him that he needed to just get the hell out and leave me alone, or I was going to tell. And I got up out of my bed, and he came after me, and I got up out of my bed and I ran into my mom's bedroom, and I started to say, Mom, he needs to leave me alone. I've had enough of him. And this is just ridiculous, whatever I said.
Yeah.
And she was like, what are you talking about? What's going on? And then he shifted it into this argument between him and her, and I got sent to bed. It just blew up, and he started beating on her, and she was terrified that he was going to leave us. He was doing all that stuff that manipulating people do.
Right.
And I realized then that this isn't going to work out well if I don't do as I'm told. He hurt my mom. He really hurt her.
Oh.
And
so again, you're taking on the responsibility of this. It's somehow you not being obedient or compliant with this. There's somebody you love getting hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it manifested in all different aspects of my life.
But somehow at 16, it sounds like you took a different stand.
Yeah.
Like you were able to get him to stop.
Yeah. We had an altercation, and I pushed him down the stairs, and he couldn't get back up. He was a bit of a chubby fellow.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get up quick enough. So I went to the kitchen and got a knife and got on top of him over the top of the stairs and said, there you go. I says, this is going to get sunken right into your throat. You leave me alone. And that was it. And then I tried to run away, and my mom, she was quick. She got a hold of my wrist, and she planted one foot on that side of the door frame and the other foot on that side of the door frame, and she's holding on to my foot, and I'm like, let me go. And my mom was just in panic, just that I was going to run away and leave, and I couldn't see my mom being in that pain, so I stayed.
Yeah.
But he didn't leave. He left me alone.
Yeah. Wow.
Hey, it's Jessa here, just taking a quick break in the show. So glad you're with me today. I want to invite you to be a part of the conversation. I run a free Facebook group called Sex, Intimacy, and Relationships. And I share articles and resources. I foster conversation and community. I'm there to answer questions if you post them. And I broadcast live, delivering information, ideas, inspiration that could help you with your sex life. I'd love to have you join me there. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/community.
But then when I had this boyfriend, and it was the fellow that I married, actually.
Okay.
I must have been 17. Because I wasn't dating him when I was 16. But anyway.
Oh, okay. So that, yeah.
He started my stepfather started to speak really disgusting about this relationship with this boyfriend. Well, he must have a big.
Oh, gosh.
Right. For her to find him so attractive. He must, and it was all sexual related about what my stress might be in him. And he's having these conversations with my mother in the kitchen, and I can hear it. He's saying it loud enough, raised voice so I can hear.
Yeah.
And I was just marinating in the anger and the bitterness and the resentment. And so that's why I jumped into that relationship and marriage, because I saw it as my way of getting out of this mess that I was in.
Yeah.
And,
right.
I'd be looked after. He had a full-time job and blah, 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 blah.
All right. So your husband ends up being awful as well, abusive in his own right. Tell me then a little bit about, what I'm hoping is the healing part of this story. I mean, I know you said you went to therapy for a couple of years. So tell me about a little bit of the transformation and how hopefully you've been able to embody your own sexuality and, power.
Right. Well, when I left him, and then I met another man, and he was just so much fun. Oh my gosh. We just had so much fun together, and I was relaxed, trusted, and I worked really hard on allowing and just being at peace with myself and with my own body.
Yeah.
At the same time, I had reconnected several years earlier with my father, and that.
Okay, so he had not really been in your life through this whole time. Okay.
No, he left when I was in the 5th grade. My stepfather was just so horrible.
Yeah.
My dad said, I can't take it anymore. And there comes the abandonment issue that I had my whole life. He left with his new family.
Wow. Okay.
So anyway, Dad and I reconnect. And my dad was very, very spiritual. And he did a lot of work on himself. He was recovered. He had recovered from alcoholism. And so he was a sponsor now and all these things. And I hung out a lot with him as much as I could. And it was a lot of time in the bush, time staring at the fire, a lot of talking, a lot of sharing circles, a lot of being open. Like, I mean, there's the people that are in those circles have come through a lot worse fire than I ever thought I ever had. So when you hear those, and we're talking residential school survivors, you name it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy town. I'm just a pup compared to what these people have been through. So that creates connection, and that creates the openness and the willingness to see yourself in a completely different perspective and awareness.
Wow. Okay.
Right. And I was watching my dad helping people that were just suffering something else. And I was with him, and I could hear the advice that he was giving and the stories that they shared and the ceremonies and things like that. So I spent as much time as I could with him. Then I went on so that relationship that I had with that man, I had a child, and it ended. I met someone else, and he was a good man, but a bad man at the same time. And yeah, he had been in prison for 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
Going through this period in my life where we weren't judging ourselves. We were being compassionate with all beings. And this person shows up, and he's pretty scary looking, but I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to, right? Yeah. And I am in relationship with this man. And it was lovely. He was lovely to my son. He was lovely. Until I found out that he was addicted to drugs.
Oh, yeah.
And the sex in that relationship was fairly sexless. I had a hard time seeing this spiritual component of him. I didn't know about the drugs at this point.
Yeah.
He wasn't an elder, but he was very well thought of in the community as someone very, very powerful.
Was the guy that was so much fun, was the sex more relaxed with him? Did you have a more sexual relationship? Okay. So part of what I'm hearing in this story is that there's been this struggle. How do I evaluate this person versus how is the society or the group or the town or whatever viewing this person? And it's hard for you to like tune into your own radar about this, right? Like that's been
boundaryless life.
Yeah. And if other people look up at this guy, he must be, like it's hard to tune into your gut and realize, wait, there's a reason I can't be relaxed in sex with this person.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I ended up ending that relationship, and he, a short while later, killed himself.
Yeah.
And I was kind of cooked at that point. I was about 38, maybe, at this point. And I was just done. Done.
Yeah.
Met another man, nice man, kind man, and had a 13-year relationship with that man. And sex was fine with him, relaxed. I knew I was never going to be hurt, but that relationship has now ended.
Mm.
It's 2 years gone now, and I am single, and I don't see me ever having another relationship.
Yeah.
As in someone moves in with me and it's that thing.
Does that seem to you like a good thing, a bad thing? Because I can imagine somebody saying that from a very empowered place. Like
I say it very empowered place.
Okay. So it's not just like resignation or something like that. It's just
not at all
clear about what you want. Yeah.
I'm very independent, and I have grit, and I have strength, and it is going to be a challenge for a man to match my capability spiritually, emotionally in the maturity, mentally in my maturity, all of those things.
Do you still want to be a sexually active person?
I'm fine to be a sexually active person.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think I'm a goddess. Right? But the man that I share my body with, that man that I share myself with, is going to be a very special being. Mm-hmm. I've never had a one night stand or a hookup or whatever the heck they call it, right? I've never done that. I have no interest in that at all.
Yeah.
So I don't think that I'm fashion. I just see my body as sacred.
Yeah. So at this point, you know how to tune in to yourself and like, is this is this somebody I want to entertain or accept in, bring in or not, and I'm not going to end up with a bad guy again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it sounds like there's been a couple of different factors that were sort of turning points. There was therapy, starting to see what the situation was for you. It sounds like reconnecting with your dad was powerful. That spiritual sharing and connection with people was powerful. Am I missing anything that you think was sort of helped you, reclaim yourself and recognize your goddessness?
Oh, there's another. Yeah, I guess it's more of a spiritual side of it. In 2013, just after 2 years after my father had passed away, I was a little waffling and things. And I started taking these programs, and they're high-end spiritual programs. And that's where things really shifted for me. Mm-hmm. Where in the first year, it was all about the emotional body, the mental body, the physical body, the spiritual body, and the soul body. And all of the different layers and pieces and repeating patterns that we participate in and continue to do all of these things. So I started to see my life like a spiral graph.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the more you continue on with those thought patterns and those triggers, whether it's a simple thing of, how you do your morning routines to your sexuality, and how disconnected I was in my body. The more you repeat those patterns, the deeper the ridges in that spiral that pattern.
Right.
And the harder it is for you to get out of that rut. So shifting your awareness into, wow, okay, I'm the reason. Like, I chose that. I had freedom of choice, and I chose that. And what was the wisdom that I gained in that experience? Okay, sometimes I'm not really sure, and other times I'm going to sit with this a little longer and see if something shows up. So I did a lot of that work, and in recognizing my repeating patterns and my toxic thoughts and how damaging I was being to my own body, mentally and emotionally and physically.
Yeah, all those bodies, really. Right?
All those bodies, I started to shift my crap.
Wow.
To the curb.
Yahoo!
Yahoo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she held you accountable. I mean, we would have coaching calls once a month. And I'm a very masculine person. I don't know if I come across that way or not, but I'm very masculine in how I push through things and just get her done. And she had a good talk with me in this one coaching call, and she's like, okay, we need to dial in some of your sensual side. And I'm like,
some of the feminine energy, right? Like, how can you come into balance for yourself? Yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I spend the next 2 years trying to dial in what that means. And it was a lot of hard work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once I walked through all of those fires and the blocks that were in the way, it's like, oh, I am beautiful.
Yeah.
I am powerful. I am all of these, and it became a respect of myself, a lifestyle and a way of being of respect of self.
Yeah.
Because choosing that is not respect of myself. So therefore, why would I repeat that pattern?
I mean, it's a beautiful story. I mean, it has a horrendous beginning, but some. I mean, for plenty of people that are listening, they've had something, if not similar, at least. A lot of people are dealt these hands, and it's and it can be a lot of years and a lot of work to transform that. So it's wonderful of you to be willing to share so much of your story with me.
Well, I hope it helps someone.
I am sure it will, actually. So I really, really appreciate it. I know it's, I love doing these personal interviews because these struggles are so common. And I do think it's so impactful to hear what people have been through and how they transform this stuff and where they've ended up. So, yeah.
I have a lovely girlfriend that I've just had in the last couple of years. And we have a Thursday night. Every Thursday night we're together. And she was also molested, little girl. And the conversations that we get into, we have our own little private little sharing circle every Thursday night.
Yeah.
And how she doesn't feel.
Yeah.
And how she cannot have relationships and she can't have intimacy and all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's path is different. But I hope that you're shining a light for somebody now who maybe has just taken, wherever they are in the journey, that they've still got steps to go. I'm sure it'll be meaningful.
I hope so.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question and answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.